Erev Tov, everyone. The pasuk begins this week's parsha. Vayera Elov Hashem, v'hu yoshev be'elonei Mamre, and hitzkecho mayom. The first three words, Vayera Elov Hashem, have nothing to do with the rest of the pasuk. And there we are left hanging what happened Vayera Elov Hashem, because then the Torah tells us a whole thing about people that he saw and that he invited and that he made a meal for them and they left blessings and so what is Vayera Elov Hashem? So there's a fundamental idea that the Meforshim discuss that we are not accustomed to deal with. The Gemara explains to us that the nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu, the level of prophecy, so the level of prophecy is the level of communication, so to speak, between heaven and earth. So by Moshe was normal. It was Kedaber Ish El Re'eu, the Torah says. Like you're having a conversation with a fellow human being. And Moshe was having a conversation, Kaviyachol with heaven. Mashen came all the other Nevi'im. So they only communicated when they were in a trance, when they were, so to speak, asleep. It was a dream. We see that later, the Torah, when it talks about Moshe, Lo b'chalom adaber bo. I don't speak to him in dreams. But everybody else, the communication was with a dream. So that's a difficulty. Because the Gemara says that all dreams have extraneous things that are not necessarily meant to be taken seriously. So the power of the Navi was to be able, so to speak, to interpret his own dream, to know what was real and what was not real, be preserved and not preserved. So what about Avraham Avinu? Moshe Rabbeinu, we say, was the Av l'chol HaNevi'im, those that preceded him and those who succeeded him. So Moshe Rabbeinu, in terms of nevuah, is greater than Avraham or Yitzchak or Yaakov, because that's what it says in the pasuk. So Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, how did they perceive that Kaviyachol Hashem spoke to them? So on that, there are different streams in the Meforshim. Now, we're not accustomed to hear this. Certainly, we don't hear it in elementary school. And most of Chumash Bereshis we learn in elementary school. And therefore, the impression that we had when we were 6 or 8 or 10 years old is the impression that remains a lifetime. Now, Rashi is bothered by this problem. And Rashi says, always ain't ani boil l'pshuto shel mikra. I only tell you what the pasuk says. So Rashi says we have to take the phrase Vayero Elav Hashem and leave it, and we'll pick up the conversation later. And from there, Chazal learn the famous concept of Gdola Hachnosas Orchim Mekabolos Pnei Ashchina, that Avraham Avinu Kaviyochel is in the midst of a nevuah, and he has 3 people all of a sudden that he has to host. And after he hosts them and they give him the brachas, so then he goes back, so to speak, to the conversation with Hashem. It's kaviyochel, as though he put him on hold on the telephone. Well, I take care of something else. That's how that Rashi is quoting a Chazal. So that was one stream how Chazal saw it. But that's a difficult stream to accept for many of the Meforshim, because Vayero Elav Hashem, so you're in the middle of a mitzvah. The mitzvah of Achnos Orchim is not those any other mitzvah. When somebody comes and asks for charity and say, wait a minute, I have guests for Shabbos. That's not an excuse. Mitzvah bo biyodecha al tachmitenu, do the mitzvah. So what does he mean that he's postponing it? So the Ralbag, there are different Meforshim that deal with this in a general way. But it's something to consider. There's a stream of Meforshim say this whole thing was a dream. Avraham Avinu dreamt that there were 3 people coming, and everything that he did, and he dreamt that he got the brachas. And that's why the Ribono Shalom Kaviochel has to confirm to him again that the brachas are real, that what he dreamt should be taken seriously. And that explains why Sarah didn't take it seriously. But Sarah is not a maminun. Sarah Imenu doesn't believe. Sarah Imenu is the mother of all of us. And the Ribono Shalom says, Kol asher tovar elecha Sarah shma b'kola. If you have a problem, ask Sarah. She's greater than you are. So she says, because she realized that it was a dream. Avram has a dream. She didn't have the dream. She didn't dream about the 3 people. So therefore, she laughed because it wasn't real to her. But Avram, it was real. So this question applies throughout Tanakh. So it explains to us, if we extend it the way the Meforshim extended it, So this especially, the Barbanel has a sefer on it, the Ralbag, Rabbi Levi Gershom has a sefer on it. It was especially popular, if I can use that word, amongst the Spanish scholars in the 14th century. And there's some that say that the Rambam also, from the Moreh Nevuchim, you could deduce the same idea. How could you have a Novi Sheker? False prophet. What did he say that gave him credibility? He said, I have a dream. I dreamt it. So the Novi Sheker is not necessarily a liar or someone who purposely wants to pervert the situation. It's just that he had a dream and he elevated his dream to Nevuah because Nevuah is a dream. And he thought that he would be in that level that his dream could be considered Nevuah. And that's why we find in Tanakh that there were Nevi'ei Emes, true prophets, who later became Nevi'ei Sheker, who later were false prophets, because he no longer was able to disassociate whether the dream he was having was actual prophecy or just something that he was dreaming. Needless to say, this is not the general opinion of the Meforshim and of tradition. However, it does give us room to consider how we look at things and how they really affect people. So Chazal say, for instance, Nitna Nevuah, the prophecy was taken away, the Nitna Lashotim. It was given to those who are mentally ill. You should say Nitna Nevuah, the Nitna to the Tzadikim, to the Talmidei Chachomim. Why does it say Lashotim? Because people who are mentally ill don't deal with reality. That's our measure of mental illness. It's not real. He sees visions, he sees monsters, whatever. So you see that very thin line here that Chazal drew. How to deal with reality and how to deal with prophecy. And therefore, the Chazal said that there were thousands of Nevi'im that the Jewish people had at a time when Nevuah was present in the world. It's no longer present. But it was present. There were thousands of Nevi'im, but only some of them were written down. Only some of them are, so to speak, verified Nevuah. And that's what Esther said, Kisvuni Lidoros. Write the Megillah so that it'll be verified, because otherwise there'll be all sorts of stories what happened in Shushan. So all of this is a matter of our consideration. And it's raised by the juxtaposition of this first posuk. Vayeru Elav Hashem, V'hu Yoshev Pesach HaOel K'chol Mayom. It's two different things. So how do we reconcile it? So Chazal reconciled it, and Rashi quotes it to the best of our ability as an interruption of conversation. But others say that Vayeru Elav Hashem is just an introduction. This is going to be a dream. Heaven is going to appear to him. And what is the dream? Vayar v'nei shlosha anoshim nitzovim olav. Over the centuries, this type of view is almost never quoted again because of the inherent dangers here. But it certainly is something that we can think about and can give us insight into what otherwise are very, very difficult and problematic subjects. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer, what's HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zakos Es Yisrael Lefichach Yom HaMaariv Torah Shenemar. I don't know.